Olá pessoal, eu sou Rodrigo Polito, nós estamos aqui no NT2E e começando mais um Nuclearcast, recebendo convidados importantes, também internacionais. Nós estamos aqui com Jack Edlow, da Edlow International Company, que vai falar sobre uma questão muito interessante também relacionada à nossa indústria, que é como transportar esses equipamentos mais sofisticados, né? Os combustíveis, os produtos, né? Numa indústria fundamental e especializada da área de nuclear. Hi, Jack.
Good morning.
Morning.
Bon dia.
Bon dia. Yes, very nice having you here. Could you give some color about what you do? Who are you and what you do?
Well, thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here in Rio at this event. It's a quite wonderful place, both Rio and the event. I run a company called Edlow International Company. It's a boutique type of logistics company involved in the transportation of radioactive cargoes, many forms of radioactive cargoes, and we ship all around the world. So all of my career, I've been spending moving these types of materials around for the benefit of things like medical applications or power applications or industrial applications.
Nice. And you said before that the company didn't do that in the beginning.
No, my father had a lead factory in Ohio in the United States, and the Atomic Energy Commission asked him to start building packages made out of lead in order to provide transportation packaging, shielded packaging for different forms of radioactive material. And so that led him into the packaging side. Ultimately, he transitioned the company into what we call the traffic management, or the management of the shipments, because we don't build the packages now, but we can use packages from other sources.
Nice.
But he started back in 1957 in the nuclear industry, at the very beginning.
Yeah, interesting this story. And Jack, could you give some color, because I wonder how challenging is transport radioactive cargo, because it's very, very complex. Could you give some color about how you work?
Sure. Well, thank you for that question. It's a good question. You know, shipping any kind of cargo is challenging, even normal things, because you're putting a product into an environment in which mistakes happen. So anything you ship is challenging. When you go to dangerous goods, and there are 9 categories of dangerous goods, flammables and corrosives and explosives and radioactive, then of course there are much more regulations involved in shipping these particular commodities because of safety considerations related to the hazardous material themselves. When you come down to the Class 7 is radioactive cargoes, that's even more challenging because sometimes you also have security issues related to those. So it becomes more and more complex. Regulations also can vary from country to country. Now, if I'm shipping wholly within a country, like just within the United States, you just have to follow U.S. regulations. But if I'm shipping to another country, say from the United States to Brazil, now I have Brazilian regulations. And if I'm also transiting a third country, a ship might stop, say, in Colombia, for instance, then I have to follow Colombian regulations as well. So it becomes more and more complex as you branch out around the world. That being said, since we've been doing this in our company for more than 60 years, and since we have our representatives or agents in all of these different countries, we know we have a system and know how to manage these issues. But it is very, very complicated.
Yeah, I can imagine. And you said something very interesting, because since you transport these cargo from a place to other, you have different regulations to deal with. You said about that. And how many countries are you working?
In a typical year, we may ship to, from, or through as many as 100 countries in a given year. Now, that being said, over my career in the what I would call nuclear countries, that is with nuclear power or other things, I've shipped everywhere except Pakistan. That's the only country I've not shipped in. I've shipped in India, I've shipped Iran, Iraq, many other countries around the world. But then again, on the medical side, which is not nuclear, that's radiological, we ship to many, many, many other countries around the world because they need cobalt, and they need Moly 99 or other things as well. So there's radioactive materials in every country, and in fact in most homes. I mean, most people don't realize that smoke detectors use americium-241, which is a radioactive material. So you probably even have it in your house. That's how prevalent it is.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yes. And well, how can I ask that? But you are how many? I forgot the question because of the number of the countries. But I will give you other question. Then I come back to that. How are you seeing the news moment for the nuclear industry nowadays, considering that European Commission considering nuclear energy, clean energy right now? So I think the markets can grow.
Correct.
Much more.
Correct.
And are you prepared for that?
Yes, that is the question. You now have the question. The situation in the world has changed dramatically in the last couple of years. People are taking the climate change circumstance much more seriously and realizing that while wind and solar are very good applications for carbon reduction, you cannot decarbonize industries that way. You're going to have to find another source to get heat or hydrogen or non-carbon impact. So nuclear has been recognized now in most countries and by many environmental groups as a necessary solution for this decarbonization. Now, in addition to that, because of the war in Ukraine, energy security has become a very important issue for many countries. In fact, it really should be for all countries, but some don't recognize it yet. The Eastern Europeans and others now recognize that they need to get away from reliance on Soviet or Russian gas, and so they're looking for what other non-carbon solutions they can find. And that's why a lot of them now in Europe are going back to nuclear, like Belgium and Sweden, and some are expanding, like Poland is now going, and Bulgaria, Finland is going to build more units. So again, this is the time for nuclear to come back into fashion around the world. Even here in Brazil, I know you're thinking about building many more nuclear power plants because energy security for you has been based on your dams, your reservoirs, and your dams. And now you begin to realize that in time of drought or changing climate, you may not be able to rely on that. So you're looking for other non-carbon ways to do that.
Nice. I remember the question, but I want to keep this part of the conversation. When we are talking about Brazil, you said in this true, we are studying how conclude Angra 3 and how build new power plants, nuclear power plants, and how do you in other markets that use radioactive cargo in Brazil. And how are your expectation with Brazilian markets right now?
You say, how is transportation?
No, your expectation.
My expectation. There's a lot of background noise here in this room. My expectation, the current government you have in Brazil is pro-nuclear. And I believe that based on this, you will put in place a program to expand nuclear plants for electricity, like Angra 3 and maybe other sites. But, here's the but. I think you also are going to start building small modular reactors or Generation 4 advanced reactors, which will provide decarbonized energy in the form of heat or possibly hydrogen production for industries that need to decarbonize. And that could include steel industries, refineries of different types, smelters, even cement plants consume large amounts of fossil fuel, and all these companies want to and need to decarbonize. And you're going to have to do that in different ways, but nuclear in these smaller applications, microreactors or SMRs, could play a very significant role here in Brazil also.
Very nice.
You know, I would say that Brazil used to be one of the biggest decarbonizing countries in the world. Yeah. It was called the Amazon rainforest. Okay, it used to bring in more carbon that are put out. But of course, over time, with the clearing of the land and such, the Amazon no longer decarbonizes Earth. Here's a chance for Brazil to go back to that process by decarbonizing its own self.
Yeah, we are very excited with the possibility of build SMRs in Brazil. We are talking about that because of a lot of issues, but one of them, the possibility of build modular
Correct.
scale, so it's better for Brazil. All things you said about the opportunity with the carbonization, with the energy transition, and we know that in USA there are huge industries thinking about
Right.
SMRs, and come back that question that I forgot. In regards of your market of radioactive cargo transportation, you are one of the biggest companies in this market. I think you are the biggest private company in this market.
Correct.
Could you give some color about how this market works? How does this market work?
Do transportation?
Yeah.
Well, look, in the industries that produce radioactive materials or consume radioactive materials, you have everything from mining companies, which are privately owned for the most part, big companies or small companies, specialized companies. You have production facilities that are making fuel materials. You have reactors like at IPEN here in Brazil, which are producing radioisotopes. Those radioisotopes has to be distributed. There's a local company just here called Medical at this conference, which is distributing within Brazil. So they have specialized trucks and people. So, I mean, the industry becomes bigger and bigger and bigger with so many applications. Now, in a domestic setting, it's not so complicated because you have your local rules and regulations run by your regulators, and you have your packaging, and so it's an issue of trucking or sometimes flying to remote locations. You go by air, but within a country, it's okay. Most of my work is international, where it's more complicated because you have two or more sets of regulations, and which you have to have all these other things which I talked about earlier. But there are thousands and thousands of companies around the world either producing or using. Hospitals need medical isotopes in order for diagnostic purposes of disease, or in some cases for treatment. Cancer treatment uses cobalt-60, which is a gamma-producing isotope, which can be targeted at individual cells of cancer to kill them. But so if you think about all the hospitals who might have oncology centers, these also have radioactive materials. They have to be sent, and over a period of years, these sources have to be recovered and recharged for future use. So there are tens of millions of shipments per year of radioactive cargoes. It's a big industry, and
it's amazing.
And in the United States, 20% of our electricity is nuclear powered. In France, it's over 75%. So you understand that this is removing a huge amount of carbon which would have been produced without it. So it's already important in the climate change process.
Yeah, you are playing a big role in this process.
And I move, not everything, but I move a substantial amount of this material. And it's an honor for me and my staff and my agents and representatives around the world to be in a position to help society with these things. We really feel it that way. We have children, we have grandchildren, we are citizens of the world. We're trying to help. That's why I'm here in Brazil.
Yeah, nice. And since you are talking that, what's the importance of the NT2E today, this event, the opportunity of see other people here, other friends, and maybe sign some contracts here? What's your expectation related to this event?
Well, I came here because I'm actually a member of ABDAN. Edlow International is a member, and this is their annual event, and it's important to come and support the industry here in Brazil, to meet with the ministers who have or will attend this conference, and of course the Navy, because the Navy is very important in the Brazilian industry. And yes, I have friends here. Yes, there are foreign companies like myself who have come here to participate. This is where you do business. This is where you talk to people, help each other. Look, during these days, many people come to me and say, Jack, I have a question. Can you help me with this? You know, it's a question of an industry working together for the benefit of the industry in Brazil, the industry in the world, and all that we do. So it's a great event. It's a great event.
Very nice. Thank you so much, Jack, for your participation and for this talk.
Thank you. It's a great pleasure to be with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.